Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting with the session 1 of the high-level corporate dialogue. Can I request you to take your seats and put your phones on silent mode? May I invite Mr. Uwe Brandes, Executive Director, Master's Program in Urban and Regional Planning, Georgetown University, to the stage, along with Professor Ramanathan, who's be giving a presentation on carbon neutrality and climate stability. Mr. Uwe Brandes will be moderating this session. Mr. Uwe Brandes has over 20 years of experience in the planning, design, and construction of new buildings, public infrastructure, and in the urban landscape. He is the founding executive director of the Master's Program in Urban and Regional Planning at Georgetown University. Mr. Brandes served as Senior Vice President at the Urban Land Institute, where he directed research and global programs on climate change and sustainable urban development. And I will now hand the dice to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to respond to the presentation. And without further ado, please take it away and don't let me hold up the show.
Thank you. Well, given the structure of this audience, so I thought I'll a little bit talk to you about. Sorry, can't hear me? Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how much time do we really have, and how following the California example may offer some hope that we can beat this problem. So let's go to the, thank you. So that bar chart basically shows how much carbon dioxide, the notorious greenhouse gas, we have really dumped into the atmosphere. It took us 120 years, starting from 1750, to put 1 trillion tons. And it just took us another 40 years to put the second trillion. If you take the best of quantum mechanics and the best of physics, what you come to the conclusion, each trillion warms the planet by 3/4 of a degree Celsius. So we have already put enough carbon dioxide to heat the planet by 1.5 degrees. We have seen about 2/3 of that, about 0.9 degrees, and the rest of it is in the ocean, and the ocean will spit it out in the next 20, 30 years. So we know for sure that 1.5 degrees warming is in our next 20, 30 years. So what happens to the 3rd trillion? Right now we are putting about 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide, and if you bring in the other greenhouse gases, it's about 50 billion tons. And it's growing at the rate of 2%. So in less than 20 years, we would have put the 3rd trillion, another 3/4 of a degree. So the planet is well on track for a warming of more than 2 degrees, okay? So we are all talking about carbon capture, bringing down the emission. Let's first talk about who should do that. Can you advance the next one, please? Yeah. This is something I just presented to Pope Francis about 3 months ago when we had a summit at the Vatican. The top 1 billion puts about 60% of the climate warming pollutions, okay? If we can advance the next one. While the bottom 3 billion, they're still relying on 18th century technologies. I took a sabbatical and lived in villages in India. She was my hostess in the Himalayas. Their contribution is less than 5%. We know when warming exceeds 2 degrees and the world suffers the sort of mega droughts which California is facing with fires, they're the ones who will be wiped out first. Basically, they're all subsistence farmers. They can't survive even a 2-year drought. So given that, let's go to the next one, please. Just those of you still wondering how this stuff which comes out of my tailpipe really heats the planet. Once you put a ton of CO2, about 50% stays there for 100 years. And about 25% stays for 1,000 years. So it covers the planet like a blanket, this carbon dioxide. And it's an exact metaphor. Just like a blanket on a cold winter night warms you by trapping your body heat. The blanket doesn't give any heat, just traps your body heat. That's exactly what carbon dioxide does. It traps the infrared heat coming from the planet. We know that from precise measurements of quantum mechanics and observations. Next one, please. So remember, every theory has to be tested by its prediction. I really grew up as an engineer in India and came to the US by a sheer coincidence, switched to physics. So when I got into this field in '75, I thought every theory has to be tested by a prediction, right? Remember, that's how Einstein's theory of relativity was tested by Eddington. So we did a very detailed analysis of the data and said, when are we going to see this warming? So I'm showing you the temperature record. When I made that prediction in 1980, the climate was still cooling. So we said, if this theory is right, the warming should be predicted by 2000. And lo and behold, it was in 2000 when the planet warmed. IPCC called it discernible warming. Using the same sort of models, I predicted, published this in 2008, we are going to see this 2-degree warming by 2050. Remember, everyone thought 2 degrees is 2100. No, it's just around the corner. So what do we really have to do? Fortunately, there's still time. If I can have the next one, please. So there are two issues. Both are, I call them equity issues. Remember, we are damaging the planet for generations, not born. Forget about our children, grandchildren. We are talking about 10 generations. For no reason, they're going to pay for our sins. So it's the intergenerational equity is why we got to decarbonize, okay? And we know how much. Remember, all we can put is 1 more trillion. At the current rate, we have only 20 years. You cut it by 50%, you extend that by 30 to 40 years. We have another 30, 40 years time, okay? And the second issue, and the cost of that, I've used IPC, it's $400 per capita per year among top 1 billion. So the entire world is arguing at the COP summit for the last 30 years for a $450 problem, okay? It's not a monumental issue as it's made out to be. The second, the intragenerational equity, a 2-degree warming is in the bank. I don't think we can avoid that. And when the planet warms, and I'm predicting it's 2050, it's going to be a planet we have not seen in the last 15 million years. How do you think these 3 billion whom we have left behind with 18th century technology are going to cope with it? So we got to give them clean energy access. For our own selfishness, if we don't do that, their per capita consumption comes to 7 tons a year, most of us. Their emission alone will be 50% of the globe. So both for altruistic reasons and sheerly selfish reasons, the top 1 billion have to give that $250 per capita. So let me switch to what California is doing. If I can have the next one, please. So I think of California, I'm proud to be living in California. We are turning out to be a beacon for the world, how to do this. So I'm showing you the percentage change in emission, and from 1990 to 2010, our emission increased only by 4% because of deliberate policies to decarbonize. While our population grew from 30 to 39 million. Okay, our population increased 30%. So you can imagine how efficient we made. And our GDP grew from 1.3 to 2 trillion. It blows away all the arguments you hear from skeptics, decarbonize is going to ruin your economy. California says no. If anything, our economy grew, And then we had this AB 32 that was done by a Republican governor, Schwarzenegger. And so we are not going to go back to 1990 emission by 2020. And then comes Governor Jerry Brown. I work with him very closely on these issues. In fact, I'm going to be in a meeting with him 2 days from now. He came and said, no, we're going to cut it by 40% in 15 years. Of course, he wouldn't have done that if it was not technologically feasible. If I can have the next one, please. So the second thing I want to show here is, this is a study I did for the California Air Resource Board. I'm showing you how the black carbon is the dark stuff which comes out of your diesel truck. It is the second most strongest global warming agent. It's also a deadly pollutant in terms of health effects. We brought it down 90%, while our energy consumed for transportation increased 5-fold. How did we do that? Simply switch the fuel to ultra-low sulfur fuel and put diesel particulate filter, got it out. And we proposed this for India in a program jointly California and India. It's eminently doable. I go to India and I see Delhi. I feel we are unnecessarily suffering the effects of pollution. The technology is there. In fact, Reliance makes the ultra-sulfur, low sulfur diesel. Another example, and this created 100,000 jobs. So none of this thing I see in papers by skeptics is going to ruin the economy. California has blown all of that out of the way. So what's our plan? Our electric system will consist of near zero net energy buildings, highly efficient businesses, low carbon generation, et cetera, et cetera. Let me give you 2 examples of this. I come from University of California. We have 10 campuses and 3 DOE labs with a total population exceeding 500,000. Can I go to the next one, please? Look and see how we are in the University of California, San Diego. Can I go to the next slide? Yeah. Our electricity is completely generated within our campus for a population of 50,000. We have the largest battery system, solar, wind power. My car is charged by electricity generated by solar. We have fuel cells, and we recycle all the wasted methane. 42 megawatts we generate. And just one university. And we have saved we save 10 million every year, not paying electricity charge. So the University of California, if I can go to the last slide, thanks to our president, Janet Napolitano, she was head of Homeland Security. I'm working closely with her. She announced last year all 10 campuses will go completely carbon neutral in 10 years. Okay? So I assembled the best minds in the University of California system, all the way from social scientists. We don't think of it as just a technology problem. It's a problem of behavioral change. It's a problem of ethics. It's a problem of communication. So we're going to release a report in this summit, October 27th. Jerry Brown will be coming and several CEOs. We're going to announce 10 scalable solutions based on the California experience, which can be scaled to the state, the nation, and the world. Thank you.
Doctor, we have limited time, but I'd like to ask you one question. The days of thinking about energy as a siloed single issue, I think we can say are behind us. But that raises a new question around co-benefits and how value propositions are framed. So maybe reflecting on this report that's about to be released, what is the integrated value proposition to doing this work?
Excellent question. You know, in the climate change, we're just focusing primarily on carbon dioxide. But I don't know how many of you know that's responsible only for 50% of the warming. The other 50% comes from things like soot, ozone, which is a smog. Cleaning that their lifetime is so small. You get rid of black carbon, ozone, and methane. They're gone in 10 years. We can bend the temperature curve within the next 20 years by 50% by cutting these pollutants. In so doing, we save about 5 million lives every year lost to air pollution. Ozone alone damages 100 million tons of crops. We just published a study 4 months ago. India loses 36% of its wheat from this ozone pollution. You get rid of ozone, you cool the climate. So there are huge co-benefits. Again, switching your energy system from coal to renewables, huge millions of lives of saved because coal produces sulfur and ash. I don't have to tell my Indian colleagues, ash is a huge problem. Yeah, the co-benefits are huge here.
That's great. Join me in thanking the doctor, and congratulations on this incredible report. I can't wait to read it.